What's going on, guys? My name is PJ, and on my channel I talk about different ways that we can connect to our true self. One of the best ways that I have found in my own personal journey of connecting to my true self has been the Enneagram. I honestly haven't really found any tool that in and of itself is this powerful to help us really understand what that true self is and connect to it more and more on a daily basis. So today I have a set of questions for us, no matter what type we are, to ask ourselves. I'm going to go type by type and I'm going to bring up 5 questions. Well, I should have taken the 10, but 5 questions that it would benefit each type to ask themselves. The Enneagram itself is a tool that helps us bring more self-awareness into our life by providing us with a map that then we can use to observe ourselves as we go throughout our day. The Enneagram gives us this tool where it says, hey, these are the patterns that as your type you tend to play out. And as you learn to observe those patterns more and more in action, you learn to kind of disidentify with them and not see yourself as your type, but be able to utilize your type as, you know, your higher self in a sense, and use your type, use your personality for a greater good, for a greater cause. So in a sense, your spirit can be channeled through your type and come into this world, but basically the will that you're serving is a higher will. At least that's how I would like to use the Enneagram. I would like to use the Enneagram as a tool that helps the voice of my ego become quieter and quieter and quieter so that my spirit can become louder and louder and louder. But the ego doesn't disappear, it's that just my spirit begins to use it for a greater good, greater cause. So today, the video that I'm shooting today was highly inspired by one of my personal favorite Enneagram books, and it is this book right here. It's called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. Bring this right here. The Wisdom of the Enneagram. It is by Don Richard Risso and Russ Hudson. So Russ Hudson is actually one of my personal favorite Enneagram teachers, and I've talked about another program of his that is pretty new. It came out in January of 2021. And that program is called the Enneagram 9 Pathways or 9 Gateways to Presence. And that program is phenomenal. It deepened my understanding of the Enneagram so much. And obviously that book that I just showed you is the fundamentals of the Enneagram as Don Risso and Russ Hudson taught it many years ago. I think that book came out in 1998 or something like that. So the ideas or the 5 questions for each type that I'm going to propose to you were highly inspired by what I learned about the types from that book. Obviously, you know, every Enneagram book has the type descriptions, but I really felt like the descriptions in this book, not to knock any other book, are more deep when it comes to the spiritual content, so to speak. It goes way beyond just the personality. It goes a lot deeper into essence, as they would call it. So the questions were inspired by that book, so I just wanted to give credit where credit is due. But those questions are not in the book, so it's just based on type descriptions and what I learned from their descriptions. So without further ado, let's jump in and discuss type 1's 5 questions to ask themselves. Okay, so I'm going to read these from my phone because, you know, I want to make sure I get them right. And little preface too is that these questions are just serving you to help expand your self-awareness practice. So these questions, the reason I wanted to share them with you is to help you bring even more awareness to yourself, your patterns, your habits, by helping you stop and pause and reflect on these questions. And Tony Robbins always says that the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. So hopefully these questions help boost your quality of life as you begin asking yourself more and more on a daily basis. So 5 questions for type 2s to ask themselves. Number 1, are your efforts to get closer to people actually driving them away. So that is actually an underlying fear that the type 2 person may feel, is that, well, not only may feel, but also it may be something that they are not aware of, and they would benefit from asking questions such as the one I just mentioned to bring awareness. You know, the whole goal of the Enneagram is to bring awareness. The whole goal of these questions is to bring awareness. So notice how your incessant desire to help, because oftentimes, you know, when the personality is not healthy as a type 2, the desire for help is not coming from the right place. It's coming from a place of like, I want to get love, like we all do, but I'm going to do it through being incessantly helping. So it's not giving without expectation, it's giving with a lot of expectation, and that expectation is the return of the love that is, you know, given, the help that is given. So by bringing attention to how your incessant helping, which may be coming from the wrong place inside yourself, how that may actually be pushing people away. So that's the goal of the question number 1. Question number 2 for type 2s to ask themselves: do you recognize what others are giving you? So the whole point of that question, the reason I put it in there, is that the type 2s may actually be getting a lot back from others, but others in their life may not be expressing or giving to them in a way that would be the preferred way of the type 2 individual. So becoming aware of the fact that people give differently. So you may be giving in the way of helping and being very hands-on. Let me help you, let me fix this, let me help you do that. But others may be different in the way they give, you know, their love and show their love. And, you know, another great book that I think is a, you know, kind of like a fundamental book, you know, for humans to read is called Five Love Languages. The 5 Love Languages, I think that's what it's called. And it has like a bunch of different variations of like 5 love languages for singles and for married couples and this and that. So, but that's the main book, 5 Love Languages. And it really shows that there are different ways that people express love. And I know in my own relationship, understanding that has been just a game changer. And so that is basically the point of question number 2 for type 2s. It's just become aware, again, going back to awareness, become aware that others may be giving to you. They just might be giving to you in a different way. That may be how you would be giving to them, you know. So just be aware of that. Question number 3 for type 2s. Ooh, this one's fire. Do you have boundaries? I have made a whole book recommendation series for each Enneagram type. For type 2s, one of the books I recommended was the book Boundaries by Dr. Townsend and Cloud. This book is phenomenal, and as a type 9, I had to learn boundaries, and it's a fairly new learning for me as well, just within the past year or two. And I see this in type 2s and type 9s that they lack boundaries. Boundaries is the ability, in a very simple, practical way, is the ability to say no. And it's also to, in a sense, have a fence around you where you're not so attached. Like, look at this hand motion right here. It's like you can't really tell the two things apart. Boundary would be like, okay, this is a separate being, separate thing, and this is a separate thing, separate being. And like they have good boundaries. Now they may come together, you know, and be together, but they're not gonna lose each other and not know where the, you know, one ends and the other one begins. They're aware of their needs. They're aware of, you know, who they are, and they're not losing themselves in a relationship. So boundaries, and simply put, the ability to say no, say this is my limit, which what boundaries are. It's a limit. Is game changer, because and I keep going back to this one saying in that book that totally just blew my mind, and it's so simple and so it's so what do you call it? It's so self-evident, but when I heard it put in that way, it really clarified things for me. And they said in that book, if you don't have the ability to say no, then none of your yeses are actually true yeses, because saying a true yes means that you had the option to say no. If you didn't even have the option to say no and you said yes, like how is that um, any like true yes? So a true yes is when you have and had the option to say no, but you chose not to. So boundaries and learning boundaries can be just an absolute game changer for type 2s. Question number 4. Are you brutally honest and aware of your motives when you do something for someone? So this goes back to the whole predicament that type 2s find themselves, is that they are such big givers, but oftentimes they may not be aware of the motivation behind that giving. So, a true giving is when, people say true giving is when you don't seek a return. Now, I think there's a balance where in certain situations you do give and you expect a fair, an equal measure of exchange. It's like there's balance there in giving and receiving. I think that's super important. And I've seen my type 2 friends just get burnt out by over giving and not saying no and all those things. But basically, the whole point of that question is the tendency of the type 2 to give with the motivation to receive love or whatever it may be, whatever it is that they seek. That motivation may not be the purest thing, to have. And like the purest motivation is to not have any motivation behind your giving, is that it's a completely unconditional and it's a true desire of your heart. You wanted to do this and you don't care, what comes from it. So the whole goal of that is that bring awareness to the motives behind your giving so that resentment doesn't get built up over time, which resentment is poison for any relationship and is sure to end any relationship, or over time if it's not addressed early on and prevented as much as possible. If you want to learn more about boundaries, which I feel like that whole question relates so much to the last question. If you want to learn more about how to set boundaries, I have a video on my channel called it's not called How to Set Boundaries. It's called My Journey with Boundaries. At the end, I talked about how to set boundaries, but I'll tag that up there. You may find it helpful as a type 2 or type 9 especially. So let's go into question number 5 for type 2s to ask themselves. The 5th question for type 2s to ask themselves. Are you confusing flattery for sincere feelings for others? So, the type 2s tend to be very expressive with flattery, compliments, but is that really replacing, sincere feelings and authentic expression? Because flattery, especially when it's done in excess, may come off as very insincere. And sincere relationship is built upon authenticity and vulnerability. And sometimes when it's just, one side of the coin of like, oh, you're so amazing, you're so awesome, and it's not honest communication, honest feedback. Not that you go, and tell someone, oh, you suck, but like, it's truthful. You're authentic about what you're saying, what you're feeling. That actually leads to deeper and deeper relationships. And ultimately what that comes down to is being vulnerable and being sincere with the expressions of love and feelings that you express. So my whole goal with that question was to just bring awareness to where you may be using overly being flattering, using compliments, giving too many, just saying compliments, but not authentically expressing. And it just going back to the yin and yang, it's like it's both, right? So yes, the compliments are like one side of the coin, but there's another side of the coin, and authentic relationships are built upon expressing both of those. Hey, like, oh, you're great in this and that, but when you did this thing, really hurt me in this way. So let's talk about that. So like that is a very authentic connection and relationship, and ultimately that has the potential to flourish into the most fulfilling kind of relationship and friendship. So that was the whole goal of that question. So hopefully, you found those helpful and start incorporating them in some shape or form into your own life and seeing their value for yourself. Type threes. 5 questions for type threes to ask themselves. Number 1, is your life and claims about yourself built on a solid foundation based on truth? So, as you may know if you've studied the Enneagram, type threes in integration in health, when they are, evolving, so to speak, and like moving higher and higher up the levels of health of their type, becoming the highest expression of their type, they actually integrate to type 6. What that means is, in one way of looking at it, is that the type 3 has started asking themselves, and as you may know, the virtue of type 3s is called honesty. So they have become honest with themselves about who they are, their success, the image that they portray. Like, who am I really? Like, am I being for real when I'm expressing certain things, or am I just creating an image and projecting that image for everyone to see? Which, they do such a great job at that, and some of us could learn from that, but ultimately, at the end of the day, every person has to kind of look at themselves in the mirror and be like, be honest with themselves. And, am I living a life based on truth? Am I for real, or am I like being fake? And as we step more and more into that authenticity and into that honesty and into that truth and live from there, we are truly building our life and who we are and our confidence on a solid foundation based on truth. And the solid foundation based on truth is like the house that's built on a rock and not on sand, as Jesus would have put it. And so that question, that's just the whole crux of the whole type 3 personality type. That just goes to the core. It's like, am I being real? Because if you answer that question for yourself as a 3, that is a clear and straight, narrow path towards growth for you. So that's why I put that one first, as I believe that is the most powerful one. So let's go into question number 2. Is your image serving you, or are you serving your image? That is a big one. That's fire right there. So I wanted to put that there, and I worded it in that way because your image can become truly something that serves you. Your image can become like a very faithful pet, or like a tool or an assistant or something that you use, a communication device, a tool that you use. Your image is a tool that you use, and you use it when you decide, but whenever that may be, and the image doesn't become the thing that uses you. So now you've become a slave to the image that you've created and projected. So that is something that as a 3 you want to be mindful of, is that has the image become a caricature, so to speak, that now I have to live up to, or am I using the image as like a tool whenever I need it? So, as a 3, portraying an image, like on social media, on different places, that is like, let's just actually stick with the social media example, because 3s are so good at like portraying the perfect life or, success on, let's say, Instagram. Well, the question here is that now, do you feel like you have to live up to that image that you've portrayed on Instagram, or are you just using that image? Let's say you're in business, and in business you have to be good at portraying image, right? But you want that image obviously to be based on truth, but you have to be good at marketing. So are you using that, or are you now have you become a slave to that marketing, to that self branding, to that self, what do they call it? Personal brand. Have you become a slave to that personal brand, or are you using that personal brand for a higher good, for a higher purpose? So that's the point with that question. Next question. Do you check in with yourself often? So type 3s are notorious at being in touch with what's going on in here, because if they do bring their attention to what's going on in here, well, guess what? Things may not get done. Success may not be achieved in the way that they want to. And so they tend to not pay attention to what's here. But the longer that this, whatever is in here, if it's grief, if it's, sadness, unprocessed feelings, the longer that that goes, it has a time, clock on that. It's going to blow up at some point. And the sooner you pay attention to it, the sooner you can bring resolution to those things and give yourself what you need and process your emotions. And again, going back to the video I mentioned in one of the previous types, the letting go technique video I've made on my channel is called, the actual video name is How to Handle Emotions, parentheses, the letting go technique explained, or something like that. I'll tie that up there, and also you can find it in the description box. That video will help you and give you a technique, a tool to use to process your emotions, because the sooner you do, the more likely you are to prevent some sort of like a midlife crisis kind of situation later, when you hit a point where you can't deny, what's been bottled up in here. And guess what? That's going to hurt your productivity more than anything. So just want to bring attention to that. And the way you do that is to check in with yourself. So, ask yourself, have you checked in with yourself at all in the past 2 hours? Like, how am I feeling? And a type 3 may feel like that's such a waste of time that could have been spent on productivity. But I have found in my own personal journey that when I take these small breaks and I just check in with myself, take some deep breaths, just now, I feel like I just got a boost of energy. I'm gonna go through all the types and I'm just gonna like crush it, But what I'm trying to say is that break can actually cause you a breakthrough. That's a sermon right there. That break can bring you a breakthrough. So I believe in the power of taking those breaks. Now, if you live your life in the break, then that's not gonna work. But that's not your problem as a 3. Those short breaks of checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? How did I feel when that person said that? Like, what do I, how do I want to respond? And checking with yourself versus just being go, 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 go. Having that time to reflect will help your productivity, not diminish it. So let's go into the next question. Question number 4 for type 3s to ask themselves: do you have safe people in your life whom you can talk about vulnerable feelings? So going back to what I said about feelings and type 3s, and the relationship that type 3s have with feelings, is that they don't pay attention to the feelings enough. And having safe people, there's actually a book called Safe People by the authors of the book Boundary, Dr. Townsend and Dr. Cloud. The book is phenomenal, and it helps you identify who are safe people. But basically, safe people means people that you can talk to honestly about your feelings, and just everything that's been weighing on you. And that will be such a relief, and it would actually deepen the relationships with those around you who love you, who are safe people, who do want to hear from you. It will deepen that and help that relationship grow and flourish as you become more honest and vulnerable and authentic in that container. But having these safe people that you can express those vulnerable feelings with will tremendously help you in your life, because type 3s are, one of the last types who would ever want to show that vulnerable side. But it would benefit them tremendously if they do, because just all the time being focused on the image that you're projecting is going to get exhausting and is going to lead to burnout, which then leads to no productivity. So preventing that by expressing these feelings to safe people is actually going to boost your productivity and not hinder it. So next point for type 3s. Do you ever stop and be a human being and not doing? So this is a point that I first learned in a book called The Power of Now. I've recommended this book in my book recommendations for type 3s, And it's I mean, there's no better book on how to really tap into the present moment. And by tapping into that present moment, tap into the being in the moment, tap into the human being aspect of ourselves, not human doing. And that's something Eckhart Tolle said in that book. It's like we're human beings, not human doings. Doing is something that we can do, but at the core, we are being. We are human being, and when we are tapped into that being, when we're just being, not doing, is when we come, face to face with our true, deepest essence, to our core, to our true, with our true self. So making the time, cultivating the time to be present and be and not do is actually going to be tremendously beneficial and helpful for type 3s. And Tim Ferriss, who very much could be a type 3, if you don't know him, he's an author of The Tools of Titan, 4-Hour Work Week, things like that. But he has a podcast that's all about productivity and all those things, optimizing yourself, so to speak. And he says that he basically learned about meditation and used to see it as like a waste of time. But when he actually did start to meditate, his productivity boosted by a lot and not diminish. And meditation and being present, just being, will actually do that, will help you be more productive and not less, because your mind is not cluttered up with a bunch of thoughts, bunch of ideas, bunch of to-do lists, and you're clear and you can focus on a single point and like get that done more effectively. So those are the questions that I had for my type 3 friends. Hope that you find them helpful. If you do, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. So now let's jump into type 4. 5 questions for type 4s to ask themselves. Are your fantasies and emotional indulgences causing you to ruin your life and waste your opportunities? I mean, the size of that question is almost as big as the size of feelings of type 4s. And I felt like that has to be the first question, because fantasies and emotional indulgences can feel like you're living life, right? Like you literally can sit in a room and just fantasize and emotionally indulge, and you feel like you just did a lot, right? Like you can literally just sit there and do that and you feel like you just did a lot. But what you may actually be doing by living in fantasies and not reality is that you may actually be wasting opportunities that, as a type 4, the type 4s tend to feel like all the good things are happening for other people and nothing good is happening for them, and that their life, and they are in some shape or form, in some fundamental way, lacking. But if you can just bring more attention to, okay, how often am I indulging in my emotions? How often am I lost in fantasies? You may actually start to see the opportunities and the blessings in your life and realize, wow, like there are a lot of good things happening in my life. It's just that I've been so stuck in thinking and emotions and indulgence in fantasies that I haven't been seeing what's actually there. So it's just, that had to be the first question, because it's a game changer if type 4s become aware of that. So next question. Are you confusing feelings with facts? I mean, I feel like so many of us probably struggle with this. Doesn't matter, even if you're not a type 4, but type 4s will probably struggle with this the most, because feelings and having strong emotions about some things can really make it seem like that's really true. Like, if I'm like really passionately telling, the sky is red, the sky is red, the sky is red, right? Like that passion, the intensity of that emotion may make me feel like that's a fact. And that's why I feel like sometimes, motivational speakers come with so much intensity and emotional like forcefulness to, like make you really believe that you have the potential, to accomplish great things, which I'm glad that they're using it that way. in a positive way. But that can also be used in a negative way. You can believe with as much intensity and as much emotional investment in the negative things, that life does suck and that, you know, your feelings are true. But I'm here to say that if you watch my video, How to Handle Emotions, the Letting Go Technique by Dr. David R. Hawkins, tagged in the description below and tagged up there, you will start to see that it's actually not true. That you are, like, these emotions, when you start to let them go through utilizing that technique, you'll start to see that the intensity of the emotion doesn't, it's not the measurement of truth. And as you start to let them go, let this energy, this emotional energy, because emotions are energy in motion. And when you let that flow through you and out of you, then you start to see clearly. And it will be such a game changer for type 2s, or sorry, type 4s, to be able to discern between feelings and facts. And you know, it really could be life changing. So that's why that second question is there, and it could be helpful. So number 3, are you confusing emotional volatility and moodiness with real sensitivity? And what I also wrote down here is, reacting to a trigger is not the same thing as feeling. You know, I resonate with type 4s a lot, and I feel like I can relate with a lot of these things. So I'm just going to pull from my own emotion or my own experience and bring that into answering, or, you know, looking at this question so that, you know, we can understand it more and more. I've noticed that when I get triggered and, you know, like, let's say somebody says something, and I get triggered about something in me gets triggered, and I just get pissed off. I just get so mad, and immediately I want to write an email like at 1,000 miles an hour, be like, you know, screw you. But, you know, at the end say best regards or something like that. You know, like, we've all been there. We've all tried to, like, do that. It's never advised to act on those. But that's not the point here. The point is, I may think that my real emotion is anger. But if I sit with that anger, if I do something like the letting go technique on that anger, let that anger come up, let's, like, feel it, really feel it, because that's what the letting go technique is all about. Feel the emotion. Don't run away from it. Don't suppress it. Don't escape from it. Don't deny it. Don't project it. Don't do, you know, don't express it. Don't do anything with it. Just be aware of the sensation of that emotion within your body. Again, to learn more about how to do the technique, check out that video in the description box, How to Handle Emotions. But as I start to let that anger come up and go out of me, move out of me, what I may realize is that I'm not actually angry. I'm sad, or I'm scared, or I'm feeling unworthy. You know, somebody may say something, deep down they're triggering a core wound of unworthiness or something like that, and I just reacted with anger. But that's not the real emotion. So if I actually am emotionally sensitive, I will actually realize that I'm actually sad, and then I can work with that. Ask myself, okay, why is that there? Like, why am I sad? Or where did that come from? Release it, figure it out, do all those things, and that would actually lead me way further in my path than to just think that that trigger and the reaction from that trigger is the real emotion. This is similar to, like, the emotions are not facts, or feelings are not facts. It's like, when I let the emotional, you know, high energy pass, then I realize that the fact is actually that I'm sad. That kind of rhyme. I mean, that has to be true if it rhymes, you know. So that's just, I mean, I'm not going to go more in depth into that, but that's just the point of that question. All right. Question number 4 for number 4s, type 4s. Do you have a positive, constructive routine in your life? So if you are familiar with the Enneagram, type 4s actually go to type 1s in health. So what that means is, a structure and routine actually helps type 4s grow and evolve and become healthier and healthier in the expression of their type. So healthy routine, healthy structure will help type 4s express their creativity and gifts and uniqueness in the best way possible. Because the type 4 is so likely to just want to go based on their feelings and just flow with the waves of life. It's very like feminine in its expression. If you define feminine energy as flow and you define masculine energy as structure, so it's like the flow happens within a structure. So it's like if a type 4, let's say, the type 4 may wake up one day and be like, I'm not really feeling it and I'm kind of sad, so I'm just gonna flow. I'm gonna have some coffee and I may then go outside and walk barefoot and like whatever it may be. The day may flow, but that creativity, that abundance of creative energy that they have was not expressed in one direction. And that's what structure provides. It allows that creative energy, that flow to flow in a direction. It's kind of like if you imagine like a stream of water. What the banks of the river do is that they give that water direction. If that water was going in 1,000 directions and it was not going in one direction, it would not be as powerful, and it would not be as impactful for people. It would not be able to sustain us in the same way. So learning how to channel that energy by creating structure could be a game changer, because let's say you say that I'm going to give myself the structure. Let's say your creative expression or creative outlet is music. From 10 a.m. to 12, I'm going to make sure I play the guitar, or I'm going to make sure I write songs, or I'm going to make sure. So you have that structure, you have that routine in place. Now you can flow within that. You can go 1,000 ways within that, but that structure is going to direct your intention and your energy, and you can bring and give birth to amazing creations that can benefit the whole world and impact your own life in a positive way by just creating solid routines and structures that will help sustain your creative output, and direct your life. So that is the point of that, to just bring that question, to just bring attention to, do I have these healthy routines and structures in my life? All right. Question number 5 for type 4s. Are you rejecting your genuine talents because some other talents seem more glamorous or desirable? The type 4s tend to look at what's missing in here and that everybody else gets to enjoy all the good things. They may do that same thing with their talents. So they may be super talented in poetry, but then they may look at an Instagram famous person and who's a musician, and or painter, let's say, and say, oh wow, wouldn't it be more like awesome or desirable if I did that, if that was my thing, if that was my talent? They may be neglecting their own God-given potential and talent to write poetry, to write songs. So by denying that, or by thinking that some other talent is better than what they have been given, what they already have in abundance of, they may not cultivate that and express that and allow that talent to be something that brings gifts into the world and like enriches their own life, in both physical enrichment and emotional enrichment. So that's something to just be mindful of by asking yourself that question. Am I neglecting my talents because I think some other talent is more desirable? So I hope that those 5 questions helped you if you're type 4. If they did, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. So thank you for watching this whole series. Again, my name is PJ, and it was truly a joy to bring this series into the world and out for you guys to watch it. If it was helpful for you in any way, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And if there are other questions that you have found to be helpful for you, please let me know also. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to my channel if you feel called to. I put out videos on the Enneagram and other topics that all fall under the umbrella of finding and becoming more in touch with who you truly are, deep down, your essence, and bringing that and expressing that out more and more into the world through the unique self that you are. And so if you want to see more videos like that and about that stuff, please subscribe. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out in understanding what resonates with my audience, what topics they want to hear more about. And again, I'm just super grateful that you gave me your time and spend this time with me. Super last quick thing, but super important thing. I am working on a course that is actually called Moving into Higher Levels of Consciousness based on the Enneagram, or with the help of the Enneagram. And it's based on a video that I made that for some reason it like got a lot of views. I didn't think it will, but it's basically the same name, How to Move into Higher Levels of Consciousness with the Enneagram. And if you want to learn more about what that whole concept even means, check out that video. I'll link it up there. The link is also in the description. But I'm working on a course that goes in depth into each of the types and talks about how each type can really help with the Enneagram, with the help of the Enneagram, evolve and raise their consciousness. So if you're interested in that course, my first release will be to the people in my newsletter. There's a link in the description. It says sendfox.com or something like that. But basically I have a header. It says, sign up in the newsletter by clicking this link. That link will, if you sign up to my newsletter through that link, you will be the first recipient of my, course when it gets offered and released, and you will also be able to receive discounts on it. So if you're interested at all in that, if you like Enneagram and want to see how you can use it to improve and raise your consciousness, then please consider subscribing to my email list, and you will be the first to hear when the course drops. So again, thank you. My name is PJ. Thank you guys for watching this video, and hopefully it was truly helpful for you. And with that, I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you in the next video.